CPE-MHN Summit, and this is going to be an exciting hour where we are going to be discussing a topic that was originally called Reimagining Your Space, which I am renaming as Commercial Buildings for the Future. And I'm Nancy Ruddy. I'm founding partner of CetraRuddy Architects here in New York City. And I have with me two really wonderful guests who are both award winners for the CPE awards that were just nominated and announced. First, we have Amy Pokawatana, who is Director of Development at Hudson Pacific Properties and oversees the development, design, and construction and redevelopment of new construction, adaptive reuse buildings in Southern California. Hudson Pacific Properties that Amy works with has won the 2020 Commercial Property Executive Award for unbuilt projects. And the project is One West Side, and it won a Gold Award, and she's going to be talking about that. Along with Gensler as their architect, they transformed an underperforming and inward-turning mall into a dynamic tech campus and office environment that incorporates greenery, outdoor space, and community amenities. And next we have Kim Van Holsbecky from Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, their New York office, but he's worked throughout the world for SOM, who focuses on complex mixed-use projects around the world, including in New York City. And Kim's firm and its developer, Brookfield Properties, have been awarded the Silver Medal for the 2020 CPE Distinguished Award for Design for One Manhattan West, a 67-story, 2.1 million square foot Class A office building here in New York City. So thank you for joining me. And what we're going to do is Amy and Kim and I are going to give you just a short slideshow of some of our work and things that are important to us. And then we're going to have a panel discussion, and then we'll end by 10 or 15 minutes of questions from you in the audience for any of us. So Amy, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you. So thank you for having me, CPE. We really appreciate the acknowledgement for our One West Side project. We're really excited about that project. So just to tell you a little bit about Hudson Pacific, we're a vertically integrated REIT headquartered in Southern California in Los Angeles. And, you know, as it states here, we're focused on the epicenters of innovation for media and tech. So we have properties, 18.8 million square feet of properties throughout the West Coast, Southern California, Northern California, Seattle, and very recently, Vancouver. We were founded in 2006. We went public in 2010. We trade under HPP, and some of our top tenants are Google, Netflix, Square, Uber, Qualcomm, and Salesforce. So One West Side specifically is, you know, a project that Google will be has completely released out, and we are currently under construction with that. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to go through just a couple of our most recent projects. This is Harlow. It's located. We also own 3 soundstage or studios in Hollywood, and Harlow is located on our Sunset Las Palmas campus in Hollywood. It's 106,000 square foot office, recently completed, and it was inspired by a greenhouse design. So as you can see in the rendering here, it's just a lot about adding light, bringing light into the office space, creating a lot of these outdoor amenities where you can work effectively indoor or outdoor, you know, connecting stairs throughout, and these very large grand stairs on the exterior where people can meet and congregate. And there's just this great vast sense of collaboration. And we just feel it's such a unique design, and we're really proud of it. So it's just recently come online. It's LEED Gold certified, and you know, just one of the projects that we have on our studio lot. Next slide, please. And this is One West Side. I'm currently in the throes of this project, and we're, again, very proud of it. This is located in West Los Angeles, and it was originally a 580,000 mall, West Side Pavilion. And we, in partnership with Maestridge, are converting it into a creative office. And fortunately for us, you know, we have a great partnership with Google, and they have completely leased out the building. So we are under construction. We are set to deliver this project to Google at the end of next year. And as you can see here, again, I think a big part of our work is really about sustainability, being conscious about the environment. So this is a complete renovation of an existing mall, which is somewhat unprecedented, and really, we're really excited about kind of this being, you know, a prototype for what future renovations can become. But you can see here on the images, we've created, the mall is very, as it currently states, very inward. So what we've done is we've created exterior glazing all around, which floor to ceiling glass, which brings in a lot of natural light and just, you know, provides for 120,000 square feet floor plates. So large floor plates that create connectivity between workspaces. And you can kind of see on the right side here, there's this cascading grand stair that connects indoor-outdoor space. We have an open atrium in the center. Just, you know, so much, I think something that just really helps to promote a healthy work environment. And we're really excited about this project. Next slide, please. This is Epic. So this also is a project that's recently completed. This is located in Hollywood. It's a 280,000 square feet of vertical office. And it's unique in that, you know, we're always looking for large floor plates, especially in Los Angeles, which is a rare thing to find. But what we've done is we've kind of turned the vertical campus into something that's unique. You can go to the next slide, please. Here, what you can see is there's a huge integration with outdoor amenity space on all these levels. So again, really trying to promote the idea of, you know, one, maximizing the weather in Southern California and utilizing outdoor space. We have these large open nano doors that, you know, create effective transitions between working indoor or outdoor, creates natural ventilation that comes in, outdoor landscape areas where people can collaborate, interconnecting stairs that promote, again, a healthy lifestyle. And just, it's really one of our, you know, proud projects because it's fully integrating this notion of how do you create a vertical tower, yet make it interconnect at all the different levels. And Netflix has also leased out this building. So they are currently fitting out their TI and will be occupying shortly. And I think the next slide also shows another image, kind of looking at from a different vantage point back. But you could see there's retail, you know, some retail space on the ground level. And also what's unique is that we've got podium level parking that is above the ground level. And it's the way that we've cladded the entire building allows it to be kind of seamless so that you can't tell where parking is versus where the office space is. So that is just a little bit about some of the projects that we're working on and we're really proud of. So Nancy, with that.
Yes, Amy, thank you very much. So Kim, can you show us some things?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Thanks for inviting us. So I'm a design director at SOM. SOM is an architectural engineering firm based around the world, but the main office in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, and then Hong Kong, London, as the other main offices outside of the US. We have been around for 80 plus years, and I think what we are known for is large scale mixed use projects, and really proud to be honored with this award. For One Manhattan West, which is it's kind of an exemplary project of the type of work we are good at, which is really bringing in a multidisciplinary thinking to projects where, in this case, city center focused developments, which are the engine of the world and the economy, and how to leverage the leftover spaces and reinventing the spaces. So in this case, One Manhattan West is a project on the west side of Manhattan. It's a 2 million square feet spec office building we started on this about 10 years ago with Brookfield Properties. And is really the first anchor commercial building of a larger vision for what is called Manhattan West Master Plan. Next, please. And stepping back for a second, for those that are familiar with New York, on the west side up to 12 years ago, a lot of the west side, Midtown, was, once you go past Penn Station, was kind of a more infrastructure-oriented zone where the trains of Penn Station would go out. The Hudson Yards is where the subway trains would be parked off-peak. And we basically untapped land that had a great potential in Manhattan that was overly built. And so there was a series of city planning visions that rezoned Hudson Yards district, and Manhattan West really fell into that. And so it's really extending Midtown to the west through Penn Station, Monaghan train station, which is an old historic building, and then Manhattan West and the Hudson Yards. Next. And this is a picture about 2012 of the Hudson Yards. It's also where the High Line, for those that are familiar with that, terminates on the north side and brings itself back to grade. And as you can see, Manhattan West was really the big building there in the center with the train tracks visible below grade, just to the bottom of this picture here. And so this was really an opportunity not just to create new architecture, but to create new neighborhoods and create new land, which was really key, not only on the main driver and vision of the project, but also how each of the buildings started to articulate and respond to those site constraints. Next. And at the heart of the project, this is basically a 2 city block development with 5 different projects. One Manhattan West to the northeast on the top right picture is one commercial office building of 2 million square feet. To the south of that is a similar tower of just shy of 2 million. 5 Manhattan West on the left side is a retrofit of that big footprint building, adaptive reuse project. And at the heart of that is a large public space that is really the heart of this new neighborhood. It's a 2-acre outdoor space which anchors all the mixed-use developments, mainly commercial, but also a residential building and a small boutique hotel and a loft, another repositioning of adaptive reuse, kind of more 1900s building. And so the key to this project was really not just the commercial building itself, but the public realm that the building sits within and how they leverage each other to a greater sum of the parts. Next. Like I said, there is 5 main buildings, mainly commercial, but also 800 units of residential tower in the Eugene and a new Pendry Hotel boutique anchoring a kind of really mixed use 24/7 community. Next. So One Manhattan West is like I said, the first commercial tower rising, and it's probably emblematic of what SOM stands for. It's really bringing in the engineering and architecture together with the city thinking of urban placemaking together in a holistic approach and a singular vision that solves all the issues. In this case, the building had to meander around the train tracks, which are basically a 24/7 operation for Amtrak. And so the building positioned itself structurally by sitting on the center core of the building almost like a flagpost that anchors the building in the terra firma, and then cantilevers out from there. And from a structural perspective, it's basically a 1:16 Flender ratio, which is quite a feat on the structural engineering side. But what it allowed us to do is basically make a very cost-effective building approach. And in addition, it started to define how this building meets the ground of this public realm of 2 acres of public space, and how does it really interact with. Next. Here you see a picture of the first tier, where you see the core in the center, where all the elevators and staircases are located, where then it cantilevers out, creating this magnificent structure floating above the ground plane, which really started setting the tone of what the vision was for the tower and its integration to the public realm at the base. Next. As the building was completed, that dramatic structure expression that solves the below-grade challenges gave us the opportunity to create this very magnificent arrival space, not only to the building and the key address for the anchoring tenants that is fully leased at this point, 95% leased when it opened. It also became a key public civic room that marked the entry point for most pedestrians coming from Penn Station and Farley Station, walking westward towards the new developments on the west side. And so it marked the building, but it also marked the larger public realm for the larger neighborhood. And through its structural cantilevering, it allowed that room to be a very transparent, seamless connectivity between the public realm with social seating up front, as well as a formal entry point into the building and the public realm and the commercial building. Next. The architecture was then expressed to really celebrate this moment of space and transparency, as well as the strength of holding up the building, clad here in travertine. It's kind of the stone that visualizes what the tower above is doing and collecting all the forces back onto the grades. And so not only is it a visualization of the structure, it is also a great architectural expression that gives it scale and texture into this civic beautiful space. Next. Here's an image how that perimeter, column-free, so basically floating over the public realm, allows the outdoor seamlessly to extend within the lobby and vice versa, and create an integrated spatial definition that blurs the boundaries between public and private, which is key important in the city and livable environments. Next. Some other shots that show that permeability of the building, and as one walks through, again, this was taken in the winter about a year ago. Now all the greenery is nice and flowered green, and the transparency allows the people to notice all the interior green spaces that are going to complete in the next year. Next. Ground floor shot. Next. And as a building rises, it basically is a 70-story building with back office buildings. Each market in New York is very much driven by big anchor tenants that will take 300 to 500,000 square feet. This building is tailored more towards the law firm and the consultancy. And so around the center core, there's very flexible, column-free, open office floor layouts that rises up to about 1,000 feet in the sky. Next. The tower itself is very simple, elegant expression of singular monoliths that will pair together with the second 2 Manhattan West and create a calm but iconic presence addition to the city skyline. And then here a shot from, normally we're in Times Square here looking southwest. As you can see here in the center, 1 Manhattan West, which is kind of the first tower as one comes from the Midtown walking west. And beyond there, you see the other development of what 10 years ago was non-existent. It's a dramatic transformation, and we're very proud to be part of this transformation of a big part of the new New York Midtown West. Thank you. With that, Nancy.
Thank you both, Amy and Kim. Obviously, you can see why we have awarded both One West Side and Manhattan West as award winners this year. And just to give you a very brief, explanation on who we are, CetraRuddy Architecture is a New York City-based firm with a global reach. We focus on everything from multifamily residential and commercial, educational and hospitality. But there is a leitmotif that goes through our work. We're very focused on creating community and neighborhood and context within our buildings, whether they're in a tight urban environment or a suburban or rural environment. Next, please. This is just to show some recent work that really incorporate the focus on sustainability, health and wellness, and resiliency. This is a new office building in the Meatpacking District in New York that we joined to a New York City landmark and created a building for smaller tenants than the kind of tenants that Kim was talking about, but creating a form that really touches the sky and really breaks down the form in a relatively low-rise neighborhood. Next slide, please. What is so important, I think, to all of us as how we work, and even before the pandemic, the idea of the indoor-outdoor connectivity and within the work environment, really providing amenities within buildings so that workers can have that time to not only socialize, but to work outside. Next slide, please. And large flexible floor plates to be adapted with only 4 columns in the entire floor plate, and large expanses and exposed ceilings to adapt to every kind of use. Next slide, please. And thinking of, looking for different ways of working right now, lots of pods within an open space so that workers can collaborate and really communicate with each other. Next slide. And this is a building in Staten Island, New York, that we have just completed. That is a spec office building, but it has a charter school on the first 3 floors. The form is basically based on solar orientation to create a more sustainable building, and has a large farm on the roof. Next slide, please. We've turned not only the roof of this building, but the parking lot that surrounds the building. Staten Island is a car-oriented environment, so that there are trees and nature and vineyards around the base of the building, and the rooftop farm feeds a not-for-profit cafe that we designed on the first floor, and that building is just being occupied right now. Next slide. Next slide, please. And this is a building that is nearing completion in downtown Manhattan for Taconic Properties. That is One Essex Crossing, and it's a mixed-use building that comprises 260,000 square feet of office space with a podium and 100,000 square feet of residential. And it also incorporates the idea of indoor-outdoor living. The facade of the building really reflects the texture of the old Lower East Side buildings that once occupied the site. Next slide, please. And within the building, we have not only an underground market line, but we also have a garden that runs through all of the office space and 2 other adjacent buildings, to once again rethinking about how we work and what are the best ways to collaborate and to be creative. Next slide, please. And this is one of the office spaces. A number of the office spaces have their own private terraces and doors and windows that open up so that there is this indoor-outdoor environment. Next slide, please. And this is another private terrace for a tenant. Next, please. And some more outdoor space, similar to things that Amy were talking about, really creating places where people can communicate and that invigorate the work environment. And really, this building really incorporates the idea of live, work, play within one building. Next slide, please. And lastly, this is a residential building that we're just completing in Midtown Manhattan. But as we're all thinking about well buildings and the connection to indoor and outdoor space, this is a building that has floor to ceiling glass that opens up onto private terraces. And every unit has corner windows and corner terraces that allow you really to enlarge your office, your living environment. And this is just another view of the completed building. Next slide. And to end, you know, being that we're talking about office and commercial, we've been doing a lot of work and thinking about what are the amenities that one can bring to commercial office buildings, and having some amenities that we find in residential buildings. So the idea of fitness and greenery and shared entertainment spaces and even sleeping pods, and obviously nature and food and beverage are really creating new kinds of office buildings and really a next chapter. So that's what I have to show. And so now let's get on to questioning and having a discussion with Amy and Kim. And our first question is, you know, we have all over the last 7 months been working primarily at home. And so I'd be very interested to understand the projects that you both have on the boards. How are they incorporating this new next chapter of what life is going to be in the world? Amy, would you like to start?
Sure. So I think what's interesting is, I think a lot of our projects, even before the pandemic hit, there was already kind of like this resurgence about, you know, how do you be more sustainable? How do you promote healthy living? And how does that pan out in your design? So we've worked so closely with all of our great design teams out there. And I think, like I said, you know, I think the running theme for a lot of the conversation today is about integrating indoor outdoor space, especially if you're in a climate that can promote that for more times of the year. But it's also about, you know, just creating, like for One Westside, for example, I think the benefit of that project is the fact that it's got expansive floor plates, but you've got a low-rise condition. So, you know, with the pandemic, I think a lot of fears for people going back to work is like, oh, what's going to happen with the elevators, you know, being a very close proximity. So I think for our One Westside project, we've really pushed the envelope. And of course, this is pre-pandemic when all this planning was happening, but, you know, how do you maximize the connection on a low-rise building with such expansive floor plates? You create a lot of stairs, you create a lot of connection points. Again, just the amount of the outdoor space that you provide for your tenants or your users, so that there's the ultimate flexibility, because people don't necessarily just want to work in an office space or at their workstation. They want to be able to have the flexibility of working everywhere. So I think in terms of, you know, kind of the trend of what's happening with office post-pandemic, a lot of the conversations on how to be more flexible, how to be more healthy, how to just be able to adapt and in all areas of the office has already been something that people have been designing for and talking about. So that just will continue to progress. And I think for us, what's been interesting is we've been back in the office since July, and And I know our tenants are also having similar conversations. So how do you bring people back, and what does that look like? We've been very successful. So what we're doing now is we're at probably like a 40% capacity every day. So you're limiting the amount of people that are here so that you have more space for everybody to be able to social distance. We've got signage up. And so it's just these conversations about how do you allow people to have just flexibility in how they work, but also provide acknowledgement that people are concerned about the health and the conditions, and just do everything we can to promote that wellness.
Right.
Right. To add to that, I think the last 7 months have been kind of a very interesting experiment out of necessity, unfortunately. And I think we've talked internally a lot, and I think we all have heard a lot of podcasts and articles about what it means. And what we've realized is we've very quickly were able to transfer to basically 100% work from home, which for an architecture firm which drives on creativity and interaction, and it's been kind of the motto being like all densely back together was kind of a big question, like, oh, is that going to work? And so our conclusion is, well, we have proven that we could work from home. Technology has been amazing the last five years, and we were lucky enough to get a CTO on board about a year ago that was implementing a lot of those cross-office collaboration tools to leverage the intelligence that we have around the globe. That suddenly became very practical in being 100% dispersed and everybody sitting in their living room. But what it also has shown is that there's points that we're missing. Like we're all going back to wanting to go to the office because we're all isolated in our personal living room or apartment or studio. And so the realization is for people that there's a necessity to be able to come together, to be collaborative and productive. And as we think about that pointed out even more the importance to make the journey to go to work a very positive experience. One doesn't go to the office to just sit in a corner office. I might as well sit in my living room, which is probably a better office with a better view. And so as we go the journey to rethink and absorb what we're learning day to day now, it even emphasizes more that every project we tackle the necessity to think about what does this mean for the user coming in every day? What kind of amenities are in the building, or what kind of spatial experience or access to elements? What kind of environment do I create? And that's not just at the physical workplace, but even walking in the building, or how a new building impacts its direct neighborhood, or how can we engage the neighborhoods? And so I think the awareness was even made stronger by the last 7 months of all the things we've been talking about, and I think you all have those are kind of the key drivers. It's not just about a piece of real estate, but it's the experience that it gives to the user.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. So the next question has to do with, we're all talking about health and wellness and buildings being a piece of promoting health in society. And it's really become front and center, I know, as a branding element and a way of attracting tenants. But I'd like to discuss with both of you how you feel. My sense is that this is not just a trend, and it's not just a reaction to the pandemic, but that it is something that a number of us really started paying attention to, let's say 5 years ago or longer than that. And so how are you integrating that into the projects that you're just starting? And the second part of that question is also, how does one deal with a client who is less than knowledgeable about the benefits of well building, and how do you work with them to sort of move this front and center in the new buildings we're creating? So Kim, do you want to start on that?
Sure. I agree with you that Nancy, that this is not a trend. That is a fare that goes by in 5 years. And to your point, it is actually, for most of us that have been working in a commercial, and it kind of goes over multiple building typologies. In airports, it's been for the last 5-10 years a big component of awareness to us designers and builders and developers that the wellness and the health became like that next item after sustainability for the last 20 years was transforming what we're doing, and wellness suddenly was about the people. And so as we, it is key. So it's not a trend. I think it's a necessity right now, and that's, I think, what has changed. Some of the front runners, developers, thinkers, designers that we're bringing to the table were maybe the forefront, but now it's a common thinking. Every project, every developer, every person you meet on the street asks the same question, even if they're not in the real estate or building world. So, this event has made it a mainstream topic of importance. How we do that is just like we do with a lot of our kind of principles, sending out, digesting what happens, seeing how we respond from sustainability to kind of the community factor of our project. And early on, establishing a set of drivers in our project. We have a series of guiding principles we bring to the table on our projects, firm-wide, that we bring to every project, and we talk about what are the opportunities on each project within this framework of very abstract drivers, and map out the best opportunities that are the most fitting, and then go with those to our clients. And sometimes the clients are not as well versed, especially in the past, now much more, and sometimes they're much more adverse than us and actually challenge us. And so by having a set of tools and principles early on in the design discussion or program discussions, we set out those guiding principles that we all buy into, that then allow us to push the project forward along the path that's a lot of times 2, 3, 4 years, and allow us to anchor those principles of health and wellness early on.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Amy, you are the developer, so
All right. Yeah.
It would be very
So
interesting to hear your viewpoint on this.
Yeah, so I think I've touched on this kind of similarly to how we approach buildings post-pandemic. Clearly environmental sustainability, health, well-being for our spaces has been a hot topic for many, many years now. So, in terms of, is this a trend? Is this going to just go away? No, it's not. It's definitely highlighted, especially now because of the pandemic, and will continue to be a topic of, where, as developers, you want to make sure you're providing what your tenants are going to want and what they need. And this is what the new generation of, younger employees and tenants are looking for. They're looking for flexibility. They're looking for making sure that we're looking at sustainability options, and that the buildings that we're putting out there are designed for that. In terms of how similarly to what Kim said, it is about kind of creating these guiding principles. And fortunately for Hudson Pacific, like sustainability, the environment, even all of the JEDI issues that are out there, I mean, this is at the forefront of everything that we're thinking about and what we're trying to push forward on. We have a corporate responsibility platform that, we've just launched called Better Blueprint, not just launched in the last year, which is focused on sustainability, health, and equity, right? How do we implement that as a baseline for all of our projects moving forward? And then, with certifications, LEED certifications, Fitwell, all of these things are critical, and, definitely targets that we try to achieve for all of our projects on the boards, and, ones that we've already, designed and started to implement. I just think it's definitely here to stay. And we are definitely trying to be at the forefront of that as a developer and owner, to be able to provide space and, projects that are going to be well received by everybody, and great for the community, great for the environment. And I think it's really exciting, honestly. And I feel that because it's such a hot topic, it's at everybody's, it's on everybody's mind right now, which is great. It's great. I mean, it's not, it's not a bad position to be in.
All right, thank you. And you sort of lead into a next question that I had, which is about sustainability and resilience and climate change, which is affecting the entire globe. And
right.
I know that years past, the certifications such as LEED were very important as far as a stamp of approval. And now there are so many programs that such as you mentioned Fitwell or Delos or Passive House or so, and there are clients on smaller projects. Not every project is a 2 million square foot project, as we know. The
right. certification
costs are an issue at times. So the question is, how are you dealing with taking sustainability and resiliency and responsiveness to local clients, climate and environment to the next step on projects that you have on the board? Because I think that we have shown that there's a great commitment to creating better buildings, but how do we take it the next step and ensure that not just the enlightened developers, but all developers are really thinking that this is key and a guiding principle to all of our work? So Amy,
right.
you want to start on that?
Sure. So I think one benefit is a lot of the local and jurisdictions that we work with, and especially in California, sustainability is becoming part of the basic requirements, right? So a lot of times right now, just by code requirements, you are already meeting a lot of the things on the LEED checklist. So there's even more reason to go ahead and try to reach for the certification, because it's part of the baseline that you need to provide anyways as part of your code requirements. So I think that helps to get, even maybe developers or clients that are not necessarily focused on that, to start thinking about it, because it's a requirement. You have to do it, and that's great for everybody. Otherwise, it's internally you just kind of have to look at, it becomes your guiding principle, and it's not even an afterthought. It's like, nope, we're doing this no matter what project we're working on, and we're committed. And again, I ask anybody to take a look at our website, and you can take a look at our corporate responsibility outline and what we're trying to do. And I'm really proud of Hudson and what we're committed to. And we recently reached carbon neutrality across all of our operations. We're Energy Star certified. I mean, so the more developers do it, the more other developers and clients are going to do it, because all of a sudden you've got competing products out there in the market. And if your tenant base is looking for that, that's what they're going to gravitate towards. So I only think that's, a win-win for everybody. Yes, the costs are definitely something to think about, and you can't ignore that. But if they become more of a baseline from the jurisdiction aspect, from the tenant requirements, I don't think you have much of a choice but to really pursue it.
Great, thank you. And I think one of the important things that you alluded to is that all of these socially responsible items become integral to the design process. It's not additive.
Correct.
It's really part of
Correct.
it. So Kim, do you have any thing to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Amy. Like, I think that, on the one hand, there's always a checklist of LEED, start with LEED and well, and there's now all the other things, and especially for smaller projects or foreign projects sometimes where some of those accreditations don't exist yet, or they're US based, the cost of them, how do you deal with that? And what I think has happened over the last years is that the general awareness and integration of the thinking has really been part of not just the big firms, even the small firms. It's so well broadly a driver for young people. We have so many young people in our office, and they're really the driver of change on socioeconomics, on the carbon. And at the end, you know, we are happy if the lead chart or the wellness chart is actually an add-on if one wants it, because at the end it's really the principles. If we're doing the right things, we don't get a credit for it. Doesn't matter as long as we elevate the overall product that we're putting out there as developers, as architects, as designers, in an intelligent way.
Great, thank you, thank you. And so the next question that I have is, we have talked about the amenitization of office buildings. 30 years ago, the big amenity was if there was a little store off the lobby where you could get, coffee, and then it became coffee bars. And but now, as developers and as designers, there is a great interest in bringing more residential type amenities into office buildings. And I think it's a better quality of life for owners of businesses, deciding on what office building they're going to move into. So I wonder if you both could talk about some of the more innovative and unexpected things that you're designing into your office buildings today. So Kim, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. I think the quote unquote amenitization of residential kind of became, it did carry over in office over the last series of years. I think in the beginning it was very much about branding and kind of distinguishing one office building from another one, very much in repositioning. So it's like a key element to kind of bring a fresh identity to the building. But it has changed over the years. That it's not just a rebranding item anymore. It is really part of the identity of the building and the users. And so they see it not just as a package that is available to the buildings and as a real estate efficiency, because that came in play for, if you have a big boardroom, you only use it once every 6 months. Now there is a nice conference center that you use it when you need it. That's still true. That's still all there. But I think as part of the experience of going back to the office, and why do I go back to the office? What I mentioned earlier, I think that amenity package lifestyle is really key in getting that elevated experience for the user. Together with, and so one of the couple of the interesting parts that we've seen in discussions on new project is how these amenities, unlike typical retail, are opportunities also to connect to neighborhoods, to invite local restaurants or like sandwich shops that are kind of not the mainstream retailers, but actually anchored in local communities. Other one that came up lately quite often as a result of pandemic here in New York, we were so reliant and so much connected by public transportation. But with the pandemic, that became kind of a fear, like, oh, I don't want to be on a subway. Like, you're probably familiar, Nancy, like, I went a couple of times in the early months and it was empty, which was an eerie experience. The flip side of that is people rediscovered, the old European school of going through the city, which is walking and biking. And so, has been coming up in a lot of projects is basically a mobility club where, it's about dropping of your bike, much more expanded, much more front and center to the arrival sequence, and not just a space where you drop off your bike, but even a maintenance shop. Maybe there's a cafe linked to it. And so the mobility hub is a key element that we see being discussed more and more in new commercial buildings, as it is part of that healthy, pandemic-proof, but even just for the wellness, people rediscovering moving on a bike through the city. People rediscovering streets and converting streets to bikes, not just on a Sunday, but actually in the middle of the week. So those are kind of quite interesting evolutions we've seen over the last 7 months.
Great. And Amy, what are you seeing in your buildings? You're on mute.
Thank you. Never fails, right? On
We
a
need
call.
to hear these important things you're going to say.
Thanks. So I think what we're seeing is kind of a trend. I think convenience is if you want something that is going to be kind of like this mixture of amenities that you would take from a standard residential project and try to implement that into a commercial project, it's really about convenience, right? So having a concierge service, fitness centers that are accessible and that people actually want to use, and dog parks, so that we have a lot of buildings where we allow tenants to bring their dogs, and so it's having the amenities that can serve those purposes. I mean, it becomes a big deal because dogs are your family, and if they're there with you, you want to be able to cater towards them as well and be able to have all of the things that they need. I saw, Nancy, on one of your projects, the garden, right? Being able to implement the ideas of having a garden that's in your buildings. And that's something that, we definitely try to do. And a lot of our tenants are doing. And again, it just kind of, I think it gives people kind of this feeling of having ownership in their space, right? Which goes back to the more ownership you feel, the more you want to be there, the more you're comfortable. And so it's kind of catering to that. I mean, outside of, we also have like drone landing pads in one of our buildings at Epic, because again, it's thinking about, you get packages all the time, especially right now. So if you have a place, eventually in the future, drone package deliveries will become kind of the new norm. So having the ability to be able to service that is something that might be nice for a tenant, which is similar to, instead of having everything dropped off at your house where it can get stolen, you can have it dropped off at your office and know that it's going to be there. And then also to Kim's point, this idea of having options, right? Optionality, especially with food, being able to program in healthy food options, not just something that's, quick and unhealthy, because that is something that's important to people. So the more options that they've got, the more ability for convenience, I think, is something that we try to integrate into our projects so that, again, people want to be here. And Kim kind of reflected this on a previous question, but although we've successfully been able to work remotely, it will be interesting to see what happens once people do start going back to the office, because I think if everybody is kind of working remotely all together, it's one thing, but when 3/4 of your staff goes back to work, right, what challenges become prevalent to the workforce when not everybody is together?
Great. Well, thank you, Amy and Kim. And this was great. It seems like we do have some questions, and we have about 6 or 7 minutes to take them. The first question is, what do you both think are the most important post-COVID components that, excuse me, that can be integrated into an office complex?
I think what we've learned is I guess in both the base building and the fit out, is the adaptability. I think is a key element. I think as we design new spaces, again, core and shell component of it to the actual fit outs of a tenant. I think the adaptability to unforeseen circumstances and is always in the afterthought now, in thought when we plan and look at planning. The One Manhattan lobby is just an example, like was this magnificent civic room anchoring a big tower. When COVID came on, suddenly became the perfect space for allowing for COVID-proof queuing and screening in a way, in a sheltered environment, right? And so while the big lobby was maybe not, not necessary from a pure functioning, suddenly became a necessity. And so I think thinking through the different scenarios of what might happen and how could you adapt without dramatically changing is definitely part of our current discussions for any new building.
Great. And Amy, another question came in about HVAC air filters
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what sort of infiltration and antiviral air cleaning systems are you considering putting into your new buildings?
Right. So I think that's definitely something that's fluid, right? As we continue to learn more about the virus and how we adapt to it. Definitely all of our properties have upgraded, filtration systems to like a MERV 13 filter. And I know there was some questions about antiviral cleaning agents. I think we're looking into everything. Everything is so new right now. So we're looking in and trying to figure out what can be implemented. And, again, what is the effectiveness, right? There's so many new products out there. You don't know if they're truly effective. So yes, definitely in terms of the filtration systems, we are upgrading everything so that they are kind of the best that they can be. But as things progress and evolve, we're constantly looking at other things that can help improve the workspace to make sure that everybody, can remain healthy and we can serve our tenants and our own staff as well.
Right. And are you looking at the existing properties that you have and figuring out
Yes.
effective and cost-effective ways on how to retrofit them while the tenants are still there?
Correct. Yeah. So it's across the portfolio, definitely, not just for new buildings or new projects.
And part of it is also not just filtration and the treatment, it's also the quantity of fresh air and how do you recirculate air and kind of thinking through that. And so different systems bring the recirculated air back to the central, mix it and spread it out. So we suddenly learn, oh, that's not a great idea when you have potentially some bacteria that goes in there. So DOAS was coming up already from other reasons, and suddenly became like, oh, this is actually beneficial because it keeps recirculated air much more local. Access to operable windows, very, very typical in Europe. Almost a code sometimes. In New York, very hard with high rise. So I think it's building typology, but it's different, and each jurisdiction is different. But I think this makes us, as well as policymakers and code writers, are thinking, how can we adapt to what we learn of today's market, and not just design something to minimum, but actually more holistic.
Great. And one last question has come in. As far as I know that we in our practice, all of the developers and building owners are saying, what can we do as far as post-pandemic improvements that doesn't limit what the buildings can be for 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. And we always talk about flexibility. And so I was curious how you're looking at things that can be implemented now, but will not limit the great capacities of the building.
I could take that. So we're seeing it with our, tenants as well. Those that have not completely fit out their space yet because they've had to pivot. Like, what are they going to do, right? They're in the process of planning their space, and all of a sudden COVID hits. What do you do? Do you restart? So flexibility is definitely the key word, and that's what everybody is doing, including ourselves, is like, okay, how do you implement something right now that can be changed in the very near future without completely upturning, your infrastructure? So I am seeing a lot of, space planning where, okay, everything is spaced out so you can have the 6 feet minimum, but also an alternate plan that shows a full capacity when things get back to normal and people feel comfortable, being in kind of like a similar space. There's definitely some transitions in terms of thinking about how much square foot per person, because I think before the pandemic, I think we were at like, everybody was planning to such a dense space that now I think people are kind of, okay, maybe everybody needs a little bit more space. So I'm seeing that transition in discussions. But I think ultimately it's flexibility. I just don't think that we're never going to come back to the office. I think we will come back to the office. And then once, there's a vaccine and people feel comfortable, I mean, you're going to start seeing the same kind of densities again, but maybe just not to that scale, right? I think people will have more breathing room, but you're still going to have, you're going to need to revert back a little bit to what it was before.
Right.
So.
Great. Well, we have run out of time. I feel like we could go on forever. I wanted to thank you both and congratulate you both for just such innovative projects. And I know that they will set a really great and high bar for developers and architects and designers and city planners. So thank you so much for joining us, and
Thanks for having us.
wish everybody well.
Yeah, thanks for having us and moderating this. This is great.
Thank you.
Yes, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Good. It's a
Thank you,
pleasure.
guys.